This is Lookout, a new camera that looks ahead so you can keep looking down. Finally, you can see what's in front of you without ever having to look up from your phone. Lookout is enabled by a breakthrough camera system which allows the lens to tilt forward and constantly stream your immediate surroundings to an intelligent overlay at the top of your screen. A visionary awareness algorithm is what alerts the Lookout display to activate whenever your attention is split between your phone and your life, so you know you can feel free to keep your eye off the ball. At last, you can drive to work while you read the morning paper, or go sightseeing while you catch up on email. Basically, you never have to do this anymore. You hear people say that we look down at our phones too much. But what if the problem isn't that we're all looking down? What if the problem is that we ever have to look up at all? Don't look up, look out.
So who thought that was real, even for just a few seconds? Don't be ashamed. Raise your hand. How did we get here? How did we get to this place where we constantly have our noses in our phones? We are scrolling through a version of life while missing out on real life. It's affecting our relationships. How did we get here? I'll tell you, because part of it is my fault. In 2002, I joined the digital advertising agency. This was the dawn of the programmatic era. It was the beginning of collecting data on consumers so that we could serve them with personal ads. I worked at Wieden & Kennedy. I worked at Bartle Bogle Hegarty, Ogilvy. I worked across brands like Nike, Johnny Walker, Match.com. And we had a lot of money and a lot of different ways of serving you ads. And we thought, this is perfect. We've solved a massive business problem. We are now finally going to be able to give people what they want. Instead of getting random ads, they're going to get ads for the things that they like. Did it work? Were you guys also happy about it? We didn't think through the unintended consequences. Fast forward to today, where behind me is just a small sampling of maybe 10, 20 minutes worth of browsing across Facebook and Instagram for one shoe brand that thinks that I want to buy it, but I really don't. It's very annoying. But how could we have known that this is what we were doing, ruining online content forever? The best minds of my generation are thinking about how to make people click ads. This is Jeff Hammerbacher. He's the CEO of Cloudera and a former Facebook employee. And he left because he didn't want to participate in this economy anymore. Advertising was the only logical model to fund online media, and it persisted and continues to this day. But it is also the reason why today companies like Google and Facebook, Uber, Amazon, all have more information about us than we do, and they know better what we want than ourselves. This is my favorite Einstein quote. Albert Einstein knew a thing or two about dangerous technology. We learned to live with nuclear technology, something that could have destroyed us all in a responsible way. Maybe the tech industry can do something similar. Right now, we're going to go through a little fast forward and rewind because a lot of really great intentions have existed and formed some of the wonderful technology that is around us every day. But there are people full of regret. Ethan Zuckerman invented the pop-up ad. He's an academic at MIT and an internet activist, and he is deeply sorry because it is one of the worst things that has ever happened to the internet. But he says, and I'm putting him in a pop-up now, he says that it was something really brave and noble that they were trying to do, and now we're forced to explain our actions, reminding everyone of our good intentions. But really, it was a fiasco, and we need to own up to that. Justin Rosenstein was the inventor of the like button. In 2007, they launched this feature, which had once been called the awesome button. And that's, yes, It was awesome in many ways. Really what it was a metrics tool, and it allowed people to stop writing comments like, I like this so much, this photo is great, and just serve it with one button. He has actually removed the app from his phone. Let me say that again. The inventor has removed the app from his phone because he fears the psychological effects that it has had on him, his family, and the world over, people who are now addicted to technology. How many of us have been really bummed out when we've posted a photo and not gotten a lot of likes? We've all experienced that. And it's been designed that way for us to be addicted to it. It's important to note that Silicon Valley's highest C-suite executives do not let their children anywhere near the stuff because they know that technology is only there to serve shareholder value and sell ads. Most of them send their kids to schools that are in the woods, that have no technology anywhere near them, and that's the way they're raising their kids. As evil as Mark Zuckerberg is painted these days, I am absolutely sure he did not intend to destroy democracy when he set out. I think it was more along the lines of trying to find a date. The startup Strava, which was founded in 2009, was a very easy way for cyclists and joggers to share route information. It had an actual great unintended effect of helping city planners understand which routes users wanted to go on, and that's where they would spend their money and pave that and leave behind another route. But because they had a default in their app that allowed geomapping of every user that was switched to on, the unintended consequence was when service members in the US Army were using it to go on their runs and do their exercise around secret Army bases, revealed military intelligence and revealed these locations. The founders of Juul actually were two Stanford design students who were smokers, and they really wanted to find a way to deliver nicotine in a smokeless manner to stop cancer from occurring. Then they took outside funding, a lot of capital, and their incentives changed. And then they began doing something really, really evil. They began marketing to teenagers. They began serving ads to youth. They then flavored their vaping cartridges in candy flavors and fruity flavors, things that would be very attractive to young users. And yes, they achieved their goal. They are worth $16 billion, but they're also in a lot of trouble. They are one of the most hated Silicon Valley entities right now because everyone who's a tech investor and has a teenager has a child who is addicted to vaping, partly because of Juul's conquest for scale. A lot of designers and coders were in their 20s when they were creating these things, and they didn't have kids. Now they have them, and they are rethinking their design decisions. I was speaking with Tony Fadell a few weeks ago about this very notion of regret. And he has a lot of regret, and he's worked really hard on his company to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes. But a lot of it had to do with maturity. And the people that were designing apps in their 20s and now have children are coming back and saying, oh, wait a second. I need to rethink this. This isn't going to work. YouTube did not want to share nightmares, I'm sure. The origin story for YouTube actually goes back to Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake and their 2004 Super Bowl halftime show and wardrobe malfunction. An employee at PayPal was looking desperately for that clip to share, and then so was birthed YouTube. And again, YouTube is especially not designed with children in mind. It was designed for office bros to share videos and laugh. Now, when you go onto YouTube, and especially YouTube Kids, you can find content that has slipped through the filters that is deeply disturbing. I have a 3- and 5-year-old, and I don't let them anywhere near YouTube Kids or YouTube. You will find things like Paw Patrol heads getting severed, you'll find Peppa Pig getting tortured. It's really worrisome. Let's see what former President Obama has to say about this.
We're entering an era in which our enemies can make it look like anyone is saying anything at any point in time.
Jordan Peele created this fake video of President Obama to demonstrate how easy it is to put words in someone else's mouth.
Moving forward, we need to be more vigilant with what we trust from the internet.
Not everyone bought it, but the technology behind such frauds is rapidly improving, even as worries increase about their potential for harm. This is your Bloomberg Quick Take on deepfakes. Deepfakes, or realistic-looking fake videos and audio, gained popularity as a means of adding famous actresses into porn scenes. Despite bans on major websites, they remain easy to make and find. They're named for the deep learning artificial intelligence algorithms that make them possible. Input real audio or video of a specific person, the more the better, and the software tries to recognize patterns in speech and movement. Introduce a new element like someone else's face or voice, and a deepfake is born.
It's actually extremely easy to make one of these things. There were just some supposed breakthroughs from academic researchers who work with this particular kind of machine learning in the past few weeks, which would drastically reduce the amount of video you need actually to create one of these.
Programs like FakeApp, the most popular and widely available for making deep fakes, need dozens of hours of human assistance to create a video that looks like this, rather than this. In August, researchers at Carnegie Mellon revealed software that accurately rendered not just facial features, but changing weather patterns and flowers in bloom.
So how is YouTube going to keep up with this? There are 400 hours of content uploaded to YouTube every minute, and their filters already are not working. And if we're worried about being in a post-fact world, people can now take these deep fakes and manufacture anything they want. They can put people in a place where they weren't. They can create alibis. This is something to think about as we move forward. History is littered with people with pure intentions. It doesn't work all by itself. We need to work a little harder and have a little more personal discipline. And this is something that I am very, very always hammering home with everyone in Silicon Valley, with all the teams. This is not something that you outsource. As users, we also have a responsibility, and we should know our place in this trillion-dollar ecosystem that we have helped create with our data and our data trails. And we need to be less naive about what actually social media companies are after. It is sometimes really hard to understand just how big of a threat there is around us. And sometimes we can only focus on what's in front of us. It's hard to wrap your head around something as complex as climate change, and it's hard to wrap your head around what's happening with social technology today. But that's not an excuse. We still need to do it, and we can't wait for someone else to fix the problem, because they're not going to. We also need to realize that tech is life or death. It seems so fun and frou-frou and not really consequential, but people are dying. Teen suicides related to cyberbullying have doubled since 2018 in the US. We need to wake up and understand that this is not just small stuff. And yes, selfie deaths, not a lot of them, but 275 people have died trying to take a selfie. This is also an indescribable thing that we never would have thought would happen, but people are motivated to do silly things. Distracted driving, online radicalization, destruction of democracy. All of these things are serious and need to be dealt with seriously. I'll tell you a quick story about a bridge collapse in Canada. In 1907, in Quebec, one of the largest cantilever bridge projects in the world was taking place, and the engineers could not get information to each other in time, and the bridge collapsed, killing 75 workers. The civil engineering community at that time came together and said, "We are not going to let this happen again. What can we do to ensure that we take more responsibility because people are dying. So upon graduation, they begin this ceremony called the Order of the Engineer's Ring. And this ring is given to every graduating civil engineer in Canada, and they wear it on their drafting hand to remind them of the weight and the consequence and the responsibility of their profession. And the ring is fabled to be made out of the same steel of that bridge. I thought I'd make one for Facebook employees. What do you think? I am not an ethicist. I am not a futurist, and I still figured out a path forward between right and wrong and flexing a muscle of foresight. You don't need an expert to come in and tell you what the answer is. These are not decisions to outsource. Every single person on a team who is a maker needs to understand their part in this, and everyone who's a user also has to understand their part in this. So I helped create this tool called the Ethical OS, and the way I came to it is I was fundraising for my startup that I had for 4 years in Palo Alto, and I must have pitched 80 investors, got 78 no's, and then realized sort of some time later that ethics never came up once. No one asked how we were treating the personal user data. None of these investors cared about that. And I was sort of in the back of my mind like, that seems strange, because in most professions you do consider consequence for society. Later, when I became an entrepreneur in residence at an investment shop in Silicon Valley, I began talking to more entrepreneurs, more engineers, early and late stage companies, and I heard the same thing. I heard the same two things, actually. One, well, ethics makes me feel judged, so we tried to find a different word. And the other was, we can't do this. We don't know how. We're not experts. But if someone had a guide, we could probably follow it. We'd certainly use it. So I made one. It's Ethical OS. And I'll take you through some of the things that we can do to sort of mitigate the harms of technology and ensure that future technology that's created isn't created in quite the same way of thoughtlessness around social consequence. I took the format of a checklist because I love this book, the Checklist Manifesto. And in it, Atul Gawande, who was a doctor turned author, wrote about a very simple thing, that checklists save lives in an operating room. When checklists are used, lives are saved. When they are not used, human error occurs. And he also made another point, that we have more information now than we have ever had to solve any problem that we ever need, but we often forget to use it. So I'm going to take you through 8 quick lessons from the Ethical OS. Number 1, collect only as much data as you need and no more. Mozilla really pushes this with their lean data practices. If you want to find out more about that, that's where I would go. But why would you ever want to be responsible for more data than you need? Because if you collect it, you have to protect it. Number 2, ensure your product spreads only truthful content. This is very, very hard to do in a user-generated platform, but it is especially necessary if you care about democracy. Number 3, can you explain your terms of service to a 9-year-old? Or in my case, to my mom? This is one of the biggest abused norms in the tech industry today, making people sign up for things that they just don't quite understand. Researchers discovered recently that it would take 78 days to read the terms of service for the average number of apps that someone has on their phone. So you shouldn't make it so difficult for people to understand what is the implicit and complicit arrangement that they are entering into when they click accept. Number 4, have a diverse team to make a better product. One of the biggest knucklehead examples of Silicon Valley is a team called Bodega. It's a failed startup. They didn't end up raising, but they brilliantly named their vending machine concept that they were going to put on every corner in New York, Bodega. That was highly insensitive because they are planning on putting out the mom and pop grocery stores on every corner, small businesses, and they were planning to wipe them out with something of the same name. So a diverse team would have easily prevented that. And it's shown over and over, diverse teams are always stronger and make better decisions. Number 5, don't design for the dark side. What does this mean? Endless patterns of click holes and traps that are full of attention and getting people to click on things and buy things accidentally or sign up for newsletters. These are all dark patterns in UX design. So if you're a designer, make sure you're not designing just for some empty metrics. Do the design that serves the user the best. Speaking of metrics, you are what you measure, and the metrics have been flawed. This is one of the biggest issues that we have. We've been measuring attention. We've been measuring daily active users, monthly active users. We've been measuring time on site. None of these actually have any value. All they do is help investors map to what they see could be the next Uber or Facebook. They're just looking for scale, and it doesn't really give us much to go off of. So what if you measured something healthier? What if you measured, I don't know, profit? What if you measured revenue? What if you actually were able to sell something and make money and not have to take outside investment? Or what if you measured something like quality of conversation? What if you measured something like civility? What if you measured something that spun things in a positive way and helped hack the world back to something better? Number 7, try to break your product. Because if you don't, someone else will, and they'll run off with the keys, and they'll run off with your users' data, and you will be in trouble, and people won't trust you ever again. It's always good to red team a product, and it's always good to design a kill function. Adopt a personal practice of foresight. So this is actually really easy. All you have to do is ask a couple of questions at team meetings, ask a couple of questions of investors, and just try to practice and build what we all have, a skill we all have, but this muscle of foresight. It's like we all missed a day in school, but it's something that we definitely need to do in a world that we're in right now. So to recap, collect less data, spread truthful information, simplify your terms, have a diverse team, don't design for the dark side, find better metrics, try to break your product, and practice foresight daily. Get out your phones, please, because I would love you to take a photo of this and take it to your teams and work with other people who care about this, take it to students, and even as users. This is really important. If you take nothing else, take this. So what about users? Baratunde Thurston is a good friend of mine, and he is an activist on the internet. He is also a comedian, and he's the former editor of The Onion and worked at The Daily Show. He wrote a handy little guide called How to Do a Data Detox in a Zillion Easy Steps that takes you through a truly frightening data detox that he did himself. So a couple of quick lessons from that. If you have apps and you haven't checked the default on your phone, you might be geolocated right now. You might be being tracked. So turn the defaults from on to off. Secure your network because Wi-Fi networks are very insecure, and not using a VPN will also allow this tracking to occur. And create demand for alternatives. Choose wisely the products you let into your life and onto your phone, because you'll spend a lot of time with them. Know your part in contributing to this trillion-dollar economy, and don't be naive. Read a couple of terms of service. Not all of them, because No one has 78 days, but read a few and see what you find. Silicon Valley is not all rainbows and unicorns. The streets are not paved with gold, and while there are a lot of millionaires and billionaires, actually the most per capita in all of the world right now, there are more homeless people than San Francisco has ever seen. 7,500 currently homeless people in San Francisco. When I was with my startup, I experienced things that I had never experienced anywhere else, not working in the Obama administration, not working in advertising in New York. And I was discriminated against raising funds as a mother, as a brown woman, and occasionally pregnant. I experienced bias, and I experienced inequity. This happens actually more frequently than you can guess in Silicon Valley. It is not a place that is human first. It is about people coming with a gold rush mentality. Shares, vesting, schedules kind of determine how long people will stay. And they are there to raise funds and get rich quick and get out. And when has that ever been good for society or community? It's not a great place. It's not a place to look up to. Instead, Melbourne, you are amazing. Look around. Look at the people next to you, the brilliant minds in this room. This city has everything it takes, including fantastic coffee that I cannot stop drinking, to create the next possible trillion-dollar startup. You can do it better here. You can look around and see who's not in the room and design for them, and you can put ethical norms in place in your community for technology development. Silicon Valley can't, but you can. Thank you.